I'm Nisha DeGaring.
And I'm Doug Jessop. Welcome to this episode of Family Heritage Stories, where we talk about what makes us who we are. Things like traditions, values, and culture.
How are these passed down through generations? Through words, through deeds, through stories.
When was the last time you thanked a veteran? It's time for Veteran Salute Stories. My Year in the Company of Heroes. It's a book compiled by the members of the 159th Dust-Off. Here's the story from a pilot by the name of Chris Crowley.
Dust-off aircraft are unarmed. They don't have machine gunners. Their sole purpose is to get as many people out and rescue anyone, whether they're the enemy or pregnant mothers or children or American soldiers, out and no matter what the circumstances are.
Your chapter that talks about you?
There is.
Tell me about your chapter.
My chapter is an amalgam of things, including some humor and some not so humorous things.
Can you share some of that?
Sure. We are we're picking up some nurses and some doctors to make a routine transfer of personnel from one hospital to another. And this particular day we picked up 2 nurses. And we're just flying off, taking them up to the new hospital, and sure enough, there's a Mayday call. It's a light observation helicopter saying, Mayday, 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 we're going down. They give their coordinates, and that's it. So we're heading directly in that direction. So we see a small fire support base. We drop off the nurses. The nurses with a young American lieutenant go up to the top of the tower because they're going to be able to see us. As we're flying out, this is all John Wayne type thing, this is why it's kind of humorous. A flight of F-105s hear what happened, say, we'll cover you going in. There's no other cover on the ground. So they're going in and they're dropping their bombs, and we go in and we see them right away. We get them out without incident, without taking any fire, and we're flying back to get the nurses to pick them up. In the meantime, both of them are covered in JP4, so their private parts are burning like crazy. And they're yelling and they're rip off their clothes. We land at the fire support base. The nurses are coming here. These guys don't see the nurses. They run and they jump into a bomb crater full of green slime water to alleviate things. And as they're coming back, they encounter the nurses. So they're running elbows akimbo, bow-legged back to the aircraft. And then we take the nurses back. Nurses never go on hot missions, and we get back to the hospital where we're taking them. And the main thing about that story is, even though there's humor to it, these nurses just out of college and nursing school have no idea what they're going to be encountering day after day. So we get there, and one of them comes up to the window and says, "Is every day like this?" And then I say, little would she know what she's going to be encountering.
Yeah.
So that's part of the chapter.
So was every day like that day?
Every day was different.
Yeah.
And why I love the job, for me, I felt born to do it. It's what I was just driven to do it. We were busy all the time, so you didn't sit around wondering or worrying about things. You just got the job done. Mm-hmm. And there's a certain exhilaration being on the edge, putting it all out there and being able. You don't think about it in terms of heroism at the time, but when you look back after 50 years, there is a sense of pride.
Veteran Salute Stories is made possible by a generous grant from the Fedora Foundation and viewers like you. There's something special about memories. It might be that one fragrance, or it might be that song, or just that TV commercial when you were a little kid. You know which one I'm talking about.
What's this stuff? Some cereal. It's supposed to be good for you. Did you try it? I'm not going to try it. You try it. I'm not going to try it. Let's get Mikey. Yeah. He won't eat it. He hates everything. He likes it. Hey, Mikey.
When you bring life home, don't tell the kids it's one of those nutritional cereals you've been trying to get them to eat. You're the only one who has to know.
This is Concours, a world-class luxury compact from Chevrolet, in Europe to show that an American car can challenge the highways of the world. Concours is an affordable car for people who appreciate the stylish elegance of fine touring cars, luxurious interiors, and dependable Chevrolet engineering. Concours, built for Americans at home anywhere. A world-class luxury compact from Chevrolet.
What is one of your favorite memories about Grandma or Grandpa?
So I had a grandma that lived in Menominee, Michigan. That's where my mom is from, and this is her mom. And she was a very sweet lady, like the sweetest woman you could ever meet. Very Christian, just really sweet and fun. Anyway, she taught me one of my most favorite card games, which is called Liverpool Rummy. She could shuffle unlike anyone I've ever seen. Yeah, but she could do like the shuffling though in her hands, you know, where it goes like up and down, up and down. I still can't do that. She could do like the bridge with the cards, all that. I never could figure that out, but I did learn how to play that card game from her. And that is a game that I continue to play with my family, with my kids as they get older. They're little right now, but I'm going to teach them that game. So that's going to be a tradition that will stay in our family, I think, for years. She's gone now, but we'll never ever forget playing cards with her when I was a little girl.
And see, that's the cool thing, because to me, if stories don't get passed down from generation to generation, they're lost.
Yeah, agree.
And then it's like those people never existed, and it's like, So that's the whole reason I do the show. So it doesn't have to be the same side, but tell me about one of your grandpas.
So it can be the same side actually. So my grandpa Bill, that was my grandma Millie that I told you about. My grandpa Bill was really cool too. He also a great card player. I mean, two of them played cards all the time with friends. Pinochle was another big game that they would play. But kind of funny story. So I love maraschino cherries, and I always have. And he would often drink. I forget what the. I didn't know what the drink was. I was a little girl at the time, but he'd be sitting there with a drink in hand, playing cards or doing a crossword puzzle or something fun, and I would just sneak by, and I would steal the cherries out of his drink. And so there's pictures of me even doing that, like holding a cherry in my hand next to him with a little smile. But yeah, I was the cherry stealer from his drinks. So they may have had a little alcohol on them, but I didn't know.
You are watching Family Heritage Stories, and we'll be right back.
Your history is everywhere, if you know where to look. But searching through all this? Are you kidding me? Actually, Kindex makes it easy to gather records and add them to your online archive, so everyone can jump in and index their records, making every word searchable. With Kindex, I know them anyway.
And now, Dad Jokes with Mike Agrilius.
Why do flamingos stand on one leg? If they lifted both, they'd fall. And here's the joke that started it all off for this book. What's the difference between a well-dressed man on a bicycle and a poorly dressed man on a unicycle? A tire. All from the book, Whatever Floats Your Goat, the granddaddy of dad jokes for kids and old goats.
A lot of traditions are based around food, okay? Heritage is based around food. I mean, think about it. You know, you got a certain kind of music and you can hear that music in the background and you think, bam, okay, I'm back in Italy and we're eating whatever it is. I don't know. It's interesting. A lot of those things that are passed down from generation are not in these clean sheets. No. They're these books. You know, they're thick. You know, they have smudges on those recipes because they've been used, they've been loved. Do you have a recipe from Grandma?
I'm from Peru. Yeah.
Where in Peru?
It's in Huancayo, Junín, Peru. It's a small country. It's really a small city. I was growing with my grandpa, with my grandma. It's kind of my parents. My parents showed me good experience for doing good people and trust and good things. But it's good country, Peru. It's good people, the food, everything. It's good. The people, it's nice. Like share with people and other people. This is
Well, you
great.
brought up the thing that I like the most, food. Okay.
Yeah.
So, was there something that your grandma made, food-wise, that you just really loved?
Oh, the pachamanca.
Oh, really? What's that?
Oh, it's make a hole in the dirt and the land and putting rocks and putting fire, make hot really hot the rocks and prepare the chicken, meat, other one with good season and putting first, when it's ready, hot the rocks, putting 1 cup potatoes and jam and putting more meat, putting cords, aba beans and putting more herbs and putting other plastic or something for make warm in the cooking inside the whole land.
Sounds delicious.
Oh yeah, for me it's really delicious. I like this, my favorite.
Hi, I'm Alicia Frigeva. You're watching Family Heritage Stories.
A while back, a group of Vietnam veterans came to Salt Lake City for a reunion. And one of the wives called up and said, "Hey, Doug, can you do this interview?" I said, "I would love to." So I got these 6 guys flying in from all over the country. The 159th Dust Off Medical Evacuation Helicopter Unit from Vietnam. We're talking medics and pilots of Hueys. To give you an idea, they took the guns off the ship, okay, so that they could get more patients on there. So now you're flying an unarmed helicopter. And as one of the guys put it, they decided to put a nice little red X on their aircraft, which made for really, really good target practice. Every single one of these 6 guys had done over 1,000 missions. Every single one of these guys had saved over 3,000 lives. Half of them were Purple Heart recipients. They told me stories that I was just amazed with. The stories were not originally intended to go on television. They were actually private interviews, because we do that on Family Heritage Stories. But I asked them, is it okay if we made a special? And to my amazement, they said yes. Well, it went out there and people like you responded phenomenally well. And then we also put it online. And something about a month later happened that was just like, wow. We posted these 6 stories. Not 1, not 2, but 3 of the stories had comments on them. And I'm a news guy, so I had to fact check. And so I asked these guys, hey, has anybody heard of this person, this person, and this person? Oh yeah, oh yeah. The comments were things like, this was the guy that gave me my orientation on the first day coming into Vietnam. He's the reason that I came home alive. Another one was saying, this guy literally saved my life. Wow. The power of stories is incredible. And that's the reason we started Veteran Salute Stories, and that's why we're asking for your help from veteransalutestories.org. Thank you very much.
Hi guys, this is Family Heritage Stories, and we'll be back in a second.
Great gardens begin right here. Beautiful flowers year after year. So much to choose from, so much to see. So much fun for my garden and me. For the best selection of plants and trees. Come on in and you will see why
every day is a great day at Mill Creek Gardens. Ba 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 ba.
What does remember where you came from mean to you?
So we would want to get the mud out of the wool. So what they would do, they would go ahead and just grab some wool, and they would put it on things called combs, these combs. And we would then go ahead and do some perpendicular combing. And the idea is to comb out the impurities and the knots. And they just keep switching back and forth. Now these look like deadly weapons. And for use here at the festival, I don't allow other people to use them just because I don't want anyone to cut themselves. I have drawn blood before. Okay, so you can already see a difference in the fibers going the same direction, and they look much cleaner. Okay, the same process would happen if we use something called cards. And these are what I actually let people use here. These look like dog brushes that you see nowadays. Okay, but the idea is to comb the wool so all the fibers are going the same direction. So you can see now they're starting to go the same direction. Now the reason that that is important is because when you are now going to spin wool, you don't want to have to be fighting with mats and knots as you're spinning. You want it to be very easily pliable or draftable. Okay, so I'm going to pull it off, and now it looks very similar to a little cloud, but you'll see the fibers going the same direction. You'll also notice how easily it pulls, and it's very fragile. This wouldn't hold any weight. So then what they would do is they would use something called a whorl, W-H-O-R-L, or they might use something similar to a drop spindle. We're going to use a drop spindle today. So a drop spindle is what will spin the wool into yarn. Vikings lived hundreds of years before a spinning wheel was invented, so they had to have something to spin. So we're going to go ahead and put the wool onto our drop spindle, and we'll start to spin it. Now the reason it's called a drop spindle is because they would drop it and let it spin and draft from the top. And drafting means I'm pulling the fibers so that I can release as much as I want to release to make my fibers as thick as I want. Now can you imagine fighting with mats and knots while you're trying to spin? So that's the whole reason we wanted it to be combed so it was more easily able to be drafted. Okay. All right, so now we've got a pretty good bit of fiber, and remember how we said this would be so fragile it would not hold the weight of the spindle. This is holding the weight of the spindle just fine because all the twists. The twists in the fiber make it stronger. I'm going to go ahead and park it and pull it off. Now, if I was to let go right now, what will happen? Yeah, it'll untwist because I've spun it clockwise, but we don't want it to untwist because then that won't help us. So go ahead, pinch in the middle, and let go. And then we're going to let it twist back on itself. And it just twisted the opposite direction. So we spun it clockwise, and it just spun counterclockwise onto itself. And you'll notice we have now spun yarn. You can see, you see the spin? We've got a 2-ply piece of yarn there, and it's not unraveling. So now it would be ready to use on a weighted loom that they might have. They would have had strings hung down, and on the bottom weights of rocks, and they would weave a loom. Or they would use something called a nawl to do nawl binding, which was a kind of a precursor to knitting and crocheting. As opposed to knitting, if you knit something and you get a hole in it, what would happen to that garment? Do you know? It would unravel. But nawl-bound garments, they can have holes in them, and the integrity of the garment remains because each of the little stitches is its own knot. So they could nawl bind a sweater or a hat or gloves or stockings or whatever they need as part of their clothing. And they could also use something called a lucette, that look similar to this, or some of these, and they would make very strong cord. Some of those cords, so they would go from one. So we've made a piece of yarn. Here's a piece of yarn that is actually store-bought, but you can see it has 3 pieces, so it's a 3-ply piece of yarn. We made a 2-ply piece of yarn. We know that yarn itself isn't very strong, great, but now it's a 4-sided, a square cord made from this little tool. Will you go ahead and pull on that? Nice tug of war.
Yeah, it's really strong.
It's really strong, isn't it?
Oh.
So if they needed a strong cord, say for any of their household items, maybe the men's pants needed a drawstring cord, or the bags that they were using, they might have used it on the edging of their clothing as decorative. I am in the process of making a rug. It's the size of a hot pad right now, but it'll eventually be a rug, but it's from a lucette cord. So that's something that they would have used, going from something unusable to something usable.
Objects with stories are treasures remembered.
Let me take you back in time to around 1913. There's a busy little town called American Fork, Utah. One of the icons of the community is a store called Grant's Music Emporium. The proprietor was a gentleman by the name of William Grant. A newfangled contraption called an automobile, more specifically the Ford Model T, came through town traversing the dirt roads for the first time. No one had seen a car before in town, so Walter's youngest son, Melvin, apparently went to get a closer look. He slipped on the muddy road and got into what is registered as the first auto-pedestrian accident in American Fork, and who knows, maybe in all of Utah. Don't worry, though, little Mel was okay. Fast forward, and that little kid that got into an accident grew up to be a person that helps people avoid accidents as a member of the Utah Highway Patrol from 1935 until 1964. This badge right here was his. His grandson, Terry Grant, is now steward of this heirloom, which he received when he turned 8 years old. Everyone has a story. Objects with stories are treasures remembered. From old paintings to new videos on your kids' devices, we're all trying to do one thing. We're trying to make a connection. It's the power of stories. How powerful are stories? We asked Maura.
It's priceless. It's priceless to me because when I was first sitting with the guys listening to their stories, it's something you just can't get back. And there's a lot of stories I wish I would have had recorded from my dad, my mom, my grandparents. So at least we were able to get these stories recorded. And to have them videoed and digitized is key, because the younger generation, you know, sitting with my nephews, doing homework with them over COVID, they weren't looking at books, they were looking at screens, and they can look at this on a screen.
Everyone has a story. Sometimes those stories are told through music. What makes you smile? Spry mouthwash helps me smile. I think it might help you too. It's our honor to be able to help people remember where they came from.
If stories are not passed down from generation to generation, they become lost. And it's as if these people never lived.
How do you want to be remembered? With another episode of Family Heritage Stories, I'm Doug Jessop.
And I'm Nisha DeGaring.